Study Section 6, Trade Union Education in Africa and Industrial Relation. Introduction. In this study session, we will be discussing trade union education in Africa and industrial relation. You will begin by explaining some of the factors that influence trade union education in Africa. Afterwards, you will be describing the industrial relation, which is concerned about the worker-employer relationship. You will end the session by highlighting different ways by which trade union education had influenced this relationship. Learning outcomes. When you have studied this session, you should be able to highlight factors that influence trade union education in Africa. Describe the relationship between trade union education and industrial relations. Trade union education in Africa. Now that you have understood who funds a trade union education, there is a need to know other factors that can influence trade union education. As you must have discovered, trade union education is indeed the overall strategic instrument that allows workers collectively to realize their capacities in promoting, defending, and enhancing their interests. At the same time, it provides an avenue to analyze its position vis-à-vis the social, economic, and geopolitical situation surrounding its environment and the workplace. In this session, we will attempt to restrict our study to Africa. The nature and form of trade union education in Africa have substantially been influenced by the changes that have affected the world of work. The world economy has been undergoing dramatic changes at a breathtaking pace in the past 2 decades. These changes are largely due to globalization of the world economy. The failure of African economies to create employment opportunities at a time when workers are losing jobs through restructuralization programs, the informalization of employment, and the opening up of new political systems. In effect, these changes have necessitated trade unions to be strong and build the capacity to engage government, employers, and other development actors. Trade union education has enabled members and leaders not only to understand new trends in social and economic development, but also to engage employers, government, and international organizations to ensure that the labor movement viewpoint is heard. Today, with the advent of information and communication technologies, and particularly the Internet, a new dimension has been brought to trade union education. We can therefore say that the factors influencing union education include the following. 1. Participation in decision-making. An average worker would want to know how to contribute to debates when serious decisions that can affect his employment is being taken. 2. Interpreting and understanding situations. Gone are the days of militancy in trade unionism. Crude unionism has no place today. Therefore, for a worker to be a good member of his union, he requires the ability to understand and interpret the situations in the workplace. 3. Acquisition of sufficient knowledge about industrial relations to enhance the position of workers in the world of work. 4. Getting involved in the process of rule-making and/or implementation of such rules in the world of work, a process which leads to industrial democracy, which in itself is a variable of industrial peace. 5. Getting prepared to accommodate the constant changes taking place not only in the workplace but also the environment. 6. Participation in the running of the union by way of recognizing one's rights and obligations, participating in discussions during union meetings and asking questions about the leadership. 7. Preparing for a leadership role in the union. 8. Acquisition of the capacity to think rationally and objectively without being carried away by mob action. Trade union education and industrial relations. Industrial relations have been defined broadly as dealing with everything that affects the relationship between workers and employers in Mafidom 1996. It involves anything which affects the employee from the time he joins the organization until he leaves his job. The whole idea of industrial relations emerged as a result of the inability of employers and employees to have a proper dialogue concerning the terms and conditions of services. Note: basically, industrial relations deals with the employee-employer relationship. The ILO Conventions 87 and 98 recognized freedom of association and workers' rights to organize and to bargain collectively. Both conventions provided the conditions under which to exercise this right. They provide the framework for domestic legislations to fulfill the requirements of the conventions. Through collective bargaining and collective action, e.g. strikes and demonstration, trade unions are able to secure workers' demands. Unions' role have not only benefited workers but also promoted industrial harmony that organizations require to thrive. They have improved communication between employees and management to facilitate the former's understanding and commitment to organizational objectives and won workers' support to the introduction of new technologies and other workplace changes. Of course, when workers are satisfied with wages and working conditions and other workplace benefits, e.g. training, it reduces labor turnover and helps to raise productivity. Unions derive their legitimacy from workers, their members, who they represent. Thus, organizing continues to be an important function of trade unions. Union structures and processes define the basis for meeting the needs of their membership. It defines the rights and responsibilities of leadership and membership as well as the hierarchy of authority of the structures. Beyond the issues at the workplace, however, trade unions have been involved in shaping public policy and decision-making that impact the well-being of their members and the public at large. Trade unions exert democratic control over public and state policy, and through this, they are able to minimize the exploitative tendencies of capital. Wood 2004, Britwom 2010. Their contribution to public policy has come in various forms, including involvement in the governance of state-owned enterprises and parastatals, policy suggestions, and as implementers of policy. Trade unions protest public policies they consider detrimental to the well-being of not only workers or their members, but also the citizenry. For instance, the Nigerian Labour Congress has through demonstrations protested against the government's decision to remove fuel subsidies. We can conclude therefore that 1. Trade union education makes it possible for labor and management to understand and view objectively the goals and directions of public policies and machinery needed for achieving them. It also makes it easier for both parties to administer industry. 2. Through union education, the individual develops an awareness of his or her rights and obligations, privileges, and limitations of his or her relationship not only with the workplace but also with the society. 3. Trade union education makes it possible for the unions and their members to fully integrate with the framework to management and the government of the day. 4. Through trade union education, participants learn to acclimatize to the ever-changing and dynamic society faced with complex, numerous, and sometimes unforeseen problems. 5. Trade union education equips the participant with the ability to make personal and collective decisions unhampered by the forces of habit and questionable tradition, or pressure, or maneuvers by outside vested interest whose main objective is individualistic, thereby enabling employees to raise their level of conscious choice and at the same time widen the range of such choices. 6. Through trade union education, the recipients are helped to understand human problems, thereby paving way for peaceful resolution of conflicts. Study section summary. In this study session, you have highlighted and discussed some of the factors that influence trade union education in Africa. With this, you were exposed to the various reasons why workers engaged in trade union education. Finally, you discussed how trade union education can influence the relationship between the worker and the employer. This is the end of study section 6. Thanks for listening.